we're going to be covering a topic that I've been getting asked a lot about here recently, which is Google pay-per-click and basically being able to run your own ads for real estate lead generation. So this is obviously a very popular, method right now for online lead generation. I've used it a bunch. Myself, I'm currently running ads right now for myself and for a few other agents. So I'm going to just share some best practices, some things that I've been doing to have success with Google Ads. And before I do that too, I'm going to jump in and just kind of talking about the general idea of it and making sure that you understand a little bit about like what you need to know before you even kind of start undertaking this project or this lead source, just so that way you know what you're getting into before you get into it, because it is, it's an investment. I think that it's a positive return on investment if you do it right. I know it's a positive return on investment if you do it right. And I've heard agents, of course, have success with like Zillow, Realtor.com, in that quality of a lead where, I mean, if they're not all going to close, right? Like you have to know that going in. It is something that you have to work, and you're going to realize you're going to have a lot of fake leads and leads that you're paying for that don't convert. But on the whole grand scheme of it all, that is where, you can certainly have a very positive ROI. And if you can do that with Zillow leads, which I know a lot of agents that are doing really good things with Zillow leads, you can like 3x it, 4x it, as far as your return on investment, if you can pay for your own Google pay-per-click leads. So that being said, let me talk a little bit about it and just, share why I believe that, and, give you a little bit of backstory behind what Google pay-per-click does for real estate agents. So first off, the idea behind Google pay-per-click is you are identifying a keyword, a niche that you want to serve, whether it's a location, a specific type of property, that type of thing. And you are going to be paying for an ad on Google that ranks you as number one above, anything else, which, for the search terms that we're going to be going after, you pretty much have to pay to play. It's very difficult SEO wise to rank for most of the terms that you would want to go after that'll get you leads. And so the thing with Zillow or Realtor.com or those types of places is there's such big websites that they don't even have to pay for ads at this point, right? Like they're organically going to rank number one, and they're going to make it very difficult for you to ever rank number one without paying for ads. But that being said, if somebody was to search for the term homes for sale in San Antonio or homes for sale in Spring Branch, which is where I'm at, Zillow is going to come up as number one if there's no ads being run for that search term. And so you can go in there and run an ad for that search term and be number one. And so here's the thing is like, I've heard people that close Zillow leads at almost at 10% or even more sometimes. That's very high. I wouldn't necessarily expect that all the time with Zillow, and certainly I wouldn't expect that with Google pay-per-click. But I've found in my experience that 5% on Google pay-per-click leads is very possible. With a good follow-up plan, and with obviously you work in the leads and prospecting them. But ideally what you're looking at is you're trying to find leads that are far enough down the funnel, right? A lot of times if you've ran like any kind of internet leads, especially like Facebook leads, or if like you've paid for a service and you really don't know how they're getting their leads, you just know they're online leads, these are very difficult to close. And I mean, sometimes like when I was running Facebook leads, that might be 1% conversion rate, 2% conversion rate if you're lucky. And it's because the intent, right? Like you got to think about what somebody is doing. So if they're going to Google and they're searching, homes for sale in this area, that's a lot more intentful than somebody who is just scrolling their news feed on Facebook and, may happen to see your ad and it catches their attention, but they really weren't, purposefully going out there and looking for homes, right? So your conversion rate is going to be much higher with a Google pay-per-click lead, and it's going to be of that same quality as like what you might get with Zillow. Now, the biggest difference between pay-per-click and with Zillow is you're going to, Zillow, that's their business, is they're basically, they've established their website, they're ranking number one, and then they're selling you back those leads. for 3 or 4 times the amount that they're worth, right? So like if you can go and generate them yourself by placing an ad and being number one on Google, you might get a lead for $15 a lead. Whereas that same lead, if you get it from Zillow for that same area that you're targeting, they might be charging you $50 to $100 per lead from Zillow, right? And so that's how they make their money. So you can almost kind of undercut that middleman. Plus, then you don't have to pay money to a what could be a competitor of ours, right? As real estate agents, just depending on how you feel about Zillow, you can kind of cut that whole process out, right? And so that's what we have the ability to do. And I think especially now with Zillow going to their flex model, whereby you are going to necessarily, you might not have to pay up front, but now they're going to start charging a referral fee in the background of 35%. You're actually going to be paying even more for those leads, because 35% of a deal, that ends up being a lot of money, right? So, agents may not think that. They might think, and it might sound better that they don't have to pay up front for leads, but it actually, in the long run, it does cost more to pay that 35% referral fee than to even pay, $100 or $60 a lead per lead. And so you can certainly save even more by doing pay per click. So it makes it even much more appealing. So that's what we're going to be talking about. We're going to talk about like why, how to set that up. I'm going to actually share my screen, show you how I have my ads set up. And, and you can kind of do a similar thing if you want to follow along, or if you want to, sometimes you might have to rewatch this video back. And so you can replay it and kind of set it up with me. But I'm going to just show you a little bit about how I have it set up and go from there. But before I even do that, I do want to talk a little bit about just the follow-up process, because if you've run any kind of internet lead in the past and it hasn't worked for you, there's usually a common reason, or a reason why that wasn't effective for you. And most of the time, it's just your follow-up process. The number one thing you have to know about internet leads, number one, speed to lead is extremely important, right? So when you get a lead that registers, you need to be calling that lead within the first 5 minutes. If you call them after 5 minutes, the chance of conversion goes significantly down. And so, if that's going to be a hindrance, if like, let's say that you are running, this is a part-time thing for you and you've got a full-time job, that may not be the best strategy, right? Like you might need to figure out a different way. Like maybe it still could be, but you'd have to find out how you can accomplish that. Maybe that means you got to, have an inside salesperson, somebody who's willing to make those calls within that time frame. Maybe you set up your Google ads to only run during specified periods of time when you would be available to make those calls. I like to let my ads run, as much as possible throughout the day. And, because I'm willing to make those calls, or my agents are willing to make those calls right away. But if that's not possible for you, then you need to figure out which way works, or maybe this again isn't the right lead source for you, because that's a big part of it. If you're not even willing to do that, or you don't think that's going to be something you can do consistently, it's one thing if you miss one here and there and you kind of catch up when you can, but like, you want to be getting to the most of them as fast as possible within that 5 minutes, if possible. So that's number one that you need to know before going into these. And then number two, you got to have a long-term follow-up process, right? Like a lot of these leads, even though they are closer down the funnel, they're better than like a random Facebook lead or something like that. They're still going to be, most of them, about 6 to 8 months, right? Like on a turnaround time. That's average. You are going to get some that will start working with you right away within 1 month, that'll close a deal 1 month, 2 months, 3 months. But on average, if you're really going to get the most return on investment out of running like Google pay-per-click, you've got to be willing to follow up with a lot of these leads for 6 to 8 months or more, right? So you got to have a good follow-up process that you can set these people up on for long term, and don't just forget about them, right? And that includes not just like sending up a drip email, but you also will have to be responsive and calling them, updating them, checking on their status. So whether that's you, or whether you do have somebody that's going to help you dial and kind of keep in touch with these people, that is something you got to think about in the beginning, because it might not sound like a lot. Like let's say that you're generating 1 lead a day, okay? And you're like, wow, it's no big deal. Like I can call 1 lead a day. Well, that's fine for day 1. And then day 2, when the next one comes in, and you call day 1's, call that lead and then call the one from before. But then once you start getting to like day 43, and now it's like you got new leads coming in this day, plus you got all these other people that you have to communicate with in the past, it can start to get overwhelming. So you want to think about your systems and your follow-up processes before you really kind of start going into that, before you even start going down the Google pay-per-click path. So that's not to say, I mean, you can start, of course, build them as you go, but just know that you've got to build them. Don't just like think that like, hey, I'm going to start generating these leads. I just call them right when they come in and that's it. No, like a lot of the money is made on the back end of the follow-up and all that type of stuff. So, and then you also have to remember too, a lot of money is made on the repeat business down the road. So, I mean, when you really look at the full potential of return on investment for Google pay-per-click leads, it's very, very high. In most markets, I see on average that, as far as like lead costs is roughly around $15. So, I mean, it can be as little as 10, it can be as high as 20, in most markets. In some markets, New York City or like San Diego or like some of these Miami, some of these like really, kind of high end markets. Or if you have super just like luxury real estate, like if you were trying to target, Silicon Valley or something, right? Like very specific where it's multi-million dollar homes. Well, yeah, of course, those leads are probably going to be more expensive. And quite honestly, I don't even know that I would want to go after those types of Google pay-per-click leads for those areas. Most of the time, again, once you're dealing with complete just luxury stuff, a lot of those agents or a lot of those leads will already have agents, people that they know. And so like getting their realtor off of Google pay-per-click is usually not something that happens. So where I see the most effectiveness from Google pay-per-click is when you're in, the average kind of like cities like, San Antonio, Dallas, Milwaukee, just like random cities, right? Seattle, Chicago. Like when you're in cities like this, and even if you're like on a suburb outside of the city or something like, but the average price isn't like sky high through the roof, that's when you can usually find the most effectiveness for Google pay-per-click. But if you're really trying to target like some niche that's like ultra high wealthy area, Google pay-per-click may not be your solution. So but anyways, so that's kind of those are just the general thoughts, my general feelings after running a bunch of ads, for myself and for other agents and things like that. What I would recommend. So, all right, so let's go ahead and just dive right in, guys. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen here. Oh, let's make it a little bit bigger there, and so you can kind of see what I'm looking at here. I've got one just example kind of campaign up here. Let me pull this up right there. Just so you can see it here. Give me one sec. Pull that out, refresh. All right. Dismiss that real quick. All right, so here we go. So the first thing you want to do is, of course, you got to set up an account at ads.google.com, right? Like that's your main platform for being able to start ads. And so if you don't already have that, make sure you go and just set up your profile. You're gonna have to link a credit card, all that good stuff. I'm not going to go through the actual like setup process of ads, of setting up your account. But once you have an account set up, it's going to be blank. You're not going to have, any of this data in here, but that's what you want, right? You want it to be blank. So let me try and pull this up. There we go. So the way that I kind of start things out, the first thing you want to look at for the most of, there's two ways you can run ads. The way I like to do it is by doing my bid strategy as maximizing conversions. This is a little bit more in depth, but I find that it gives me a better cost per lead. The more easy setup and a way that you might set it up in the beginning, if you can't figure out how to set up the conversions, because it's a little different for every single website, is you can also do it just by cost per click, right? And going after and paying per click to your landing page or to your squeeze page, which we'll talk about here in a little bit. But basically, if you're going to do it for conversions, the thing you got to know is once you kind of come here, the first thing you'll do before you even set up your first ad is you're going to set up conversions. And the way that you do that is you go up to tools and settings, you go to conversions. All right. And then you've got different signups. You just say new conversion action. You're going to say website. You're going to put your website domain. You don't really, I mean, it doesn't really do anything, but let's just say I was going to do it for, mine is the handyteam.teams.exprealty.com, right? And I'll say scan. And then down here, so you're going to skip this part up here to, conversion actions automatically, and you're going to do it manually. So add a conversion action manually. Your goal is going to be signups. Okay. Then you're going to say use no value or don't use a value. Even though it says not recommended, this is basically saying like if there's different values, like for a sign up, like $10 versus $5, you're going to put some kind of dollar amount in there. That's not what we want to do, but we do want it to be counted, and we want it to count on one. So each one counts as one sign up, right? So each conversion will only count as one. Okay. So we do this and let's say done. And then we say save and continue. And it's going to give you a code that you're going to have to put on your website. And if you don't have access to be able to, manipulate your website, whatever it might be, then it'll actually give you the ability to send it to your webmaster, whoever is kind of in charge of your website. Now, this is where having a website, like what I use is KV Core. I don't know, obviously everybody's going to use something different. But if you're not using KV Core, I can show you how to do it on KV Core. If you're not doing it, if you're not using KV Core, I can't show every single one. But basically, you would need to find out where to put this code on your website, depending on what website you're using. So in here, you can see, I can grab my event tag. What I'm gonna do is I'm actually gonna say done. And then if I came over here, and then this is the one that I just created, the sign up right here, and I click it again, and I come to tag setup, and I say install the tag myself, or again, you can email the tag if you want to your developer. I'm going to say install my tag myself. And then it gives me my global site tag. So this is where I'm going to put in the header of all of my entire website. And then an event snippet, this is like what actually tracks the conversion. And so if you're like, I'll show you here on KV Core, if you're using KV Core, what you're going to do is you're going to go to your web and IDX and go to your website settings. I'm already on that page now for my Teams page. And if I come down, I scroll down to where I see custom header. This is the code that I can manipulate to be able to put something on every single page of my website, right? So this is where I want to put the first one, my global site tag, right? So I'm going to copy that. I'm going to come over here. I've already got it pasted in. So I've got my pixel code on there as well. So like that's another good spot. If you're on KV Core, that's where you're going to put your Facebook pixel. But if you come down below that, this is where I've got my global site tag for my Google ads, right? So that's right inside here. And then if I scroll even further, I've got conversion code, right? So KV Core automatically has a spot there where I can put my conversion code. And so if I come down here to the event snippet, I grab the conversion code. I can come in here, and then there's my conversion code here. This bottom part here, this is actually KV Core. There's another code that you can put in here to track registrations and things like that for your Google Analytics, which I've got that code in there as well. But the one that we want for Google Ads is right up here. So you come in here, and one thing to note if you are using KV Core is you got to, like when you put it in here, you have to hit save. And then when you put it in here, you have to hit save again. Don't put it in both and then only hit save on one, because then it won't actually save the top one. So, or whichever one you did first. So just as a little side note. So now once you have that in there, you are basically set up. It's set up to track your conversions. And so at this point, like what you can do now, come back to Google Ads, and you can actually start creating your actual ads, right? So here's one of the ads that I've got going right now. You can see just in the last like 7 days, I'm not spending a ton, $13 a day. So that's why it's giving me this little thing that says limited by my budget. But you can see just, I've had 64 clicks. I've had 5 conversions. So, it's about $16 per conversion is what I'm paying right now. I just started this particular campaign like maybe like 9 or 10 days ago. So it's actually still kind of like optimizing. It's still kind of figuring itself out as to who it should show the ad to. So that's why, at this point, it might get down a little bit less than 16, but I think overall, it's probably going to be around 15, 16 bucks per lead, right? And if you think about this, right, $16 per lead, if I'm telling you that, you can close roughly about 5% of your Google leads. That's 20 leads. That's about 3 to 350 per closing, right? Which, I mean, if you're making 7 grand, 8 grand, 9 grand off of a closing, by converting 5% of these leads, that's highly profitable, right? Like it's a good return on investment. And so, that's where you want to kind of target. You can see my cost per click is $1.29. That's what kind of really impacts, different areas. I'm targeting a suburb outside of San Antonio for this in this particular ad. But anyways, so that's kind of, let me show you now actually on the campaign level how you create an ad. So when you create an ad, all you're going to do is you're going to hit the blue plus sign here and say new campaign. I'm just going to show my actual campaign so that way you can see the exact settings that I use. But if I come in here and I go, let's say here, edit. Well, I think actually I might have to go to the ad group to edit my ad. 1 second. I don't know if it'll actually let me do it from the way that, so I'll pull it up here. I'll just say new campaign. All right. So if I do new campaign, and then if I do sales, that's typically, or I'm sorry, I'm going to do leads, not sales. And then it's going to ask you which conversion goal do you want to improve the lead generation. And this is where you're going to select the conversion goal that you already created, right? So like this one is using signups, which that's the one that I want. Now, the other two are unverified because I just created them, or at least that one that I just showed you is unverified, so it's not going to show up here. So it might take a second for it to get data from your website for you to be able to select it, but I'm just going to go move forward with the one that I've already created. And then here I'm going to run search ads. So I just want it to show up on search. This is, you don't really need to, I guess you could say this. I'm not going to worry about that. I usually just title mine search because that's the type of deal that I'm going. And then I say continue. And then you want it to go off of conversions. Now, if you can't set up conversions, right? Like, and this is where I was saying, like, there's a much easier method of doing this. If you cannot set up conversions because either you don't have access to your back end of your website, and all you really want to do is send traffic and still convert leads, you can do a bidding style for clicks, right? And you do clicks and you're still going to convert people. It's just basically what you're telling Google at this point is you want Google to try and determine, like, it'll see the type of people that are converting on your website. So it'll then start to get smarter and only show your ad to people who it thinks will convert better on your website. Like, they've got so much data and all these things that they'll start to see similarities and serve your ads to less people that are less likely to convert and more likely to actual convert on your website if you use the conversions. Whereas if you just use clicks, well, then it's going to serve up your ad to people who it believes are going to at least click, right? Which the people that click may not be the people that actually fill out your form on your website. So they're still good, and if that's the best you can do, it's still fine. You just might be able to find a little bit lower cost per lead if you can actually go after the conversions versus the clicks, right? Here, I'm going to turn off search network. I'm going to turn off display network. I've just not found those really help out very much. You're actually going to just increase your cost per lead. Locations, I leave locations alone. Languages, I usually leave languages alone because I speak English. If you speak a different language, you might actually target like a secondary language that might help you when it comes to the bidding for your ads. The reason why I don't select locations is because you don't want to just select your location. Like, let's say that I'm targeting San Antonio. I don't want to just search, I don't want to just target people that are in San Antonio. I'm already going to be searching or targeting a keyword like homes for sale in San Antonio. Therefore, I'm okay with people that might be outside of San Antonio that are searching for that search term. So if they're in Chicago, if they're in Florida and they're searching homes for sale in San Antonio, I still want my ad to show up to them because chances are maybe they're relocating here and I still want that potential business. So I'm not going to limit by location or anything like that. I've not found any, benefit to doing that for the type of ads that I'm running. Next is where you're going to get to your ad group. This is where you're going to want to break down and start figuring out what market, what area that you want to target. So for instance, I did, let's go ahead and just say I'm going to do, figure one out here. We'll do New Braunfels. Okay. So if I do New Braunfels, then what I'm going to have to do next is I have to figure out, and you'll want this to be specific. So like, whatever, if you've got multiple subsection segments of your city that you want to go after, create a different one for each of those subsegments. So like, if I wanted to do New Braunfels, but I also wanted to do Cibolo, which is, just outside of New Braunfels, I would make those two separate ad groups, right? So this is now we're in the ad group level. So they'll still be under the same campaign. The way you have to look at it is you got campaign, which is the top level, then you got an ad group, and then you have ad group, then you have ads at the bottom. So right now what we're doing is we're kind of changing out the ad group by putting this in here. So anyways, now I'm going to go after the keywords that I want for New Braunfels. And so what I'm going to do there is let me go after my, duplicate this out here. I'm just going to go grab the ones that I've got because I only go after about 4 different keywords. So let me close this out. And let me go to one of my campaigns that I've already got going. Spring Branch. So here's my keywords that I'm going after here, right? So I can grab these, just copy that, paste that here, change this, New Braunfels, Texas, enter, next one, property for sale. Braunfels, Texas. Go to the next one. And let's grab the last one. All right, so there we go. So these are my keywords. You could also, kind of depending on what you want to do, you could search for like, New Braunfels condo. If there's specific types of properties you want to go after, you could, and that's like what's served in that area. Like if most people are looking for condos versus homes, right? You might put New Braunfels, Texas condos for sale, right? Or if it's always, farm and ranch or whatever it is that you're wanting to target, you're going to put it there. The one thing you can do, I use a tool called Ahrefs just to get kind of keyword volume. It's a little bit overkill for this. You don't need it because it's pretty expensive. It's over $100 some odd a month. I mainly use it because I use it for my blog as well. So since I already have the tool, I can go in and I can research. I'll show you here. I go to Ahrefs. I'm going to show you how I do it, but I'm going to show you a cheaper tool that you can use as well, since you probably don't need like the full capabilities of Ahrefs. But like if I wanted to go in here and actually just kind of test out these keywords to see if they even get traffic, I can come in here. There's a keyword explorer, and I can just search that. Tells me here, give me what the volume is of that keyword. There we go, 200 searches per month, so pretty good. It even tells me my cost per click estimate, right? $2. So that's a little higher than what I am for Spring Branch. I'm paying like $1.24. Sometimes this isn't exactly, 100% accurate, but at least gives you a good ballpark. And so like there's 200. It gives me another, like here's other ways that I can look at it. Homes for sale in New Braunfels, Texas. So like I might want to just switch that up. There's 2,000 a month for that, right? And it's $1.70. Now, the way that we have it set up, because that's very similar, New Braunfels, Texas homes for sale as it is to homes for sale in New Braunfels, Texas, this is considered a broad match. Like if you just type the keyword, that's a broad match. If you wanted it to be exact, like to where they would literally have to type in New Braunfels, Texas homes for sale, then you could put in these brackets right here. I, for one, don't use those. I like to kind of keep it more broad. So I'll delete those. And then what I end up doing, and I'm going to talk about this here in a little bit, is you will have to manage the campaign. Once you get it up and running, there's one thing in particular that you're going to want to look at, which is considered like the keywords. And you're going to want to add in some negative keywords after your ad has been running. And what that means is, like, because you're doing this as broad, Google might serve this ad to a keyword that it thinks is similar to what you're going for, but it's not exact, right? Maybe it's not. So, like, maybe they might serve it up for New Braunfels, Texas homes for rent. And you're like, I don't want to, pay for somebody to click on my ad for, if they're looking to rent, and things like that. And so you'll be able to go in and add negative keywords, which means that, like, if they type in that particular word, it's not going to serve it up. But in the beginning, I just leave it broad. And then as I start to see what it's serving my ads up to, I can add those negative keywords after the fact, right? So, but that gives me kind of, so this is, more than enough to kind of hit most of the terms that people are going to be searching for in here. So, like, even if somebody searched for older homes for sale in New Braunfels, Texas, this broad match New Braunfels, Texas home for sale is probably going to hit that search as well, just because broad is pretty broad. So it's going to serve it up to quite a bit. And so now one of the other tools that you can use if you want a cheaper tool than like Ahrefs is Ubersuggest. It's actually free. You could come in here. You might have to sign up, like give them your email. This is Neil Patel's tool. It's a really good tool though. And so you could use Ubersuggest. If you do want to pay for a tool that's way less expensive than Ahrefs, you could use KW Finder. I think this is, how much is it? Yeah, you can get the basic subscription for like $29 a month. Whereas again, like Ahrefs, like this gives you way more stuff than you're going to need just for keyword research. I use this a lot for, like, my blog and whatnot, but you're talking, pricing even on the light plans, $99 a month. So, and I think I've got the standard. So it's not super cheap for Ahrefs, but Ubersuggest is free. I think you just have to give them your email, and then they do limit you to how many searches you can do in like a day or two. But it could be a good way to get you started on that. So, all right. So now heading back to the ads. So we've got our keywords in here, right? And now you're going to need to add in you have to actually create your ad, right? So this is where we have to figure out, where are we going to send the traffic that's clicking on this ad? Well, we got to send them to a page that's going to convert them from traffic to a lead, right? And so KV Core does that for us. So hopefully you have some kind of a website that has an IDX feed built into it, which an IDX feed is like a data exchange. It's your, it's where it takes all the properties that in your MLS and displays them on your website. So you want to have an IDX feed that's connected to your website, and then you want to have a lead capture, something that's like, well, when somebody goes to that IDX feed of your properties, it asks them for their registration, right? So KV Core has that all built in. So that's what I'm going to use. That's what I'm going to show you. But basically what it's doing is, like, so here's my KV Core website. If I click on houses, here's my IDX feed. It has all the properties in the MLS for San Antonio. And if I were to click on one of these, right, the way KV Core is set up is it lets me look at properties, right? Like I can look at one property, and then when I click on the next one, let's say I came down here and I wanted to maybe look at, let's see, click over in Alamo Heights, and now I want to see this property. Oh, now it's not loading. Hold on. Let's say I wanted to look at this property. There we go. So now you can see there where it has the pop-up, and it tells me if I want to keep looking at properties, I either have to sign them with Facebook or Google, or put my email address in, bob@gmail.com, and then I have to put my cell number in, right? And one thing in particular that I've found is, because they could actually register without putting their cell number in, it asks for it, but it's not required. If you are on KV Core, you can actually mandate the phone, which I've done. So you'll see here, it's in that same web and IDX settings, or if you come down here and it says mandate phone, you want that selected. I like to have phone numbers on my leads. It's going to decrease the amount of leads that you get, but I don't believe if I'm paying for leads anyways, I want the phone number. I don't want just to build an email list. Now, if I'm like creating content and I've got freebie giveaways and stuff, and I just want to collect emails and then, market to them and try and get them to eventually want to work with me, that's a whole different strategy. But for like Google pay-per-click leads, I want the phone number when I'm paying for the lead. So I do mandate the phone. Um, let's see here. Give me one second. I hope this is helpful, guys. I haven't even looked at I'm just like in the zone, so I haven't even looked at the comments. So hopefully you're getting some value out of this. And I know I'm going really fast, but like I say, I'm trying to knock it all out in one, hour-long video. If you got to go back and rewatch this replay, by all means, feel free to do that. But also, if you haven't already, make sure to give this video a like. And if you're not subscribed to my channel, be sure to subscribe to the channel. I'll be doing a lot more Google pay-per-click videos and trainings. So definitely stay tuned for that. But I'm just trying to give you like how to get set up with it all. And so you can actually start running with your first ad, at least get it up and going. So that way you can kind of start experimenting with it from there. And, but we'll talk more strategies as far as like follow-up procedures, drip campaigns, things like that, scripts, in future videos. So definitely stay tuned for those. But okay, so going back now to the ads, let's see here. All right, so now here's where you got to set up the ad. All right, so we need a URL that we're going to send these people to. And so since obviously they're looking for New Braunfels, Texas homes for sale, I can go into KV Core and I can come over to my web in IDX, or actually I go to where am I at here? Get all mixed around. There we go. Lead engine, build squeeze page. And then what I want to do is I can actually type in New Braunfels. A second to pop up. There we go. City of New Braunfels. And listing type, I'm usually just going to pull single family. Property views allowed before registration. I do it immediate. I don't want them. So like if they're just coming to my website without this ad, that's fine. They can do two with, they'll see one, and then on the second one, it makes them register. But if I'm sending them straight from Google to my site, I want it immediate, right? Source, I'm going to put as Google. I know that this lead came from a Google campaign that I did, and you can even hashtag them as like whatever the town you want. So like that way, that like later on down the road, especially if you're running ads for multiple cities or something like that, hey, this person came in looking for New Braunfels. So if there was like a new listing, you could always keep them up to speed or whatever you want to do, but just knowing that they came in from New Braunfels. And that's it. That's what I do here. And then I'm going to say generate link. I can grab this direct link. This is the one that I'm going to put into as my final URL, right? So now it's in here. And if you wanted to see what that looks like, you can actually type it into your own browser and see like what it's going to look like if somebody were to go there. Okay, so here you go. So this is what they would pop up. 252 results in New Braunfels, Texas for homes, right? So now it has all the homes. So like this is what they're going to see when they click on your page. And then the first time they view details on a property, it's going to make them register, right? So, and of course, that's the whole thing, right? Like not everybody who clicks on your ad is going to register. I think if you saw on my ads, you look here, let's see the last 7 days. Let me just go to let's go to search campaigns. Yeah, here we go. So I've had 64 clicks and 5 conversions, right? So conversion rate's 7.8% on mine. So not everybody that clicks onto your ad is going to convert, and that's okay. As long as your cost per conversion is where you want it to be or where it should be for the final lead, you are okay. All right. So, I've spent $82 and I've had 5 conversions, $16 per conversion. So that's just part of it, right? Like, so some are going to click and then they're going to say, oh, they want me to register. No, thanks. And go back and leave. Some are going to say, okay, fine. And then register, right? So that's kind of how that happens. Now over here, this is where you can make your URL a lot prettier because obviously you don't want to display that to people. But I would say path here as Braunfels. So now what you'll see is on the ad, it'll say, your domain and then / New Braunfels. Now for headlines, I've got a bunch of different headlines that I use. So I'm going to go back to my ad and let's go in here and actually just edit it. There we go. So here's where I've got a bunch of them here. So I can just kind of copy these over and paste, and you guys can use the same ones or you can change it up. Now, the one thing that I will say is there's a little pin right here to the right. You can click on this and you want to pin certain ones in certain positions. So like I always want like New Braunfels property search is always going to be in the number 1 position. And then live MLS search, I'll put in the number 2 position, which just means it goes right afterwards. And then updated listings 24/7, I'll throw into the 3rd position. Oops, 3rd position there. So now, and you'll start to see it'll like, yep, there you go. You can kind of see what it's going to look like. So those are my headlines, the first 3. And then you can put more, right? Because you want Google, it's going to run a bunch of different iterations of this ad to see which one performs the best, like which headlines perform the best, right? So here, same thing, Broncos for sale. I want that in the first position. But even though it's going to be changing around these iterations of them, it will never move this one from the first spot. It'll never move this one from the second spot. So like it might change and say, okay, we're going to try this one in the first spot, but this one in the second spot and this one in the third spot, or I might try this one in the first spot, but it's always going to pin these because I don't want, something that says live MLS search first and then New Braunfels homes for sale third. Like I always want that to at least be in the first spot. So you just pin them to the spots that you want. Here's something I'll put second. And you want to put as much of these in there as you can, which I think you can do 15 of them. 163 active listings, and it's okay if it's not exact, but I do know from when I searched it, it was 252. So I'll at least put that in. Obviously, it's not dynamic, so it's not going to be changing as it changes. But if somebody sees that and then all of a sudden they click and there's 247, I don't think they're going to care too much. Okay, Spring Branch Real Estate, Braunfels. Like that. Into my third spot, pin this one to the third spot. So there's a bunch more that you can see. So you can see here, and I'm not going to finish them all, but there you go. And I think that was pinned to the third spot. So there we go. So there's your headlines, and you would want to finish that out. Then next for descriptions, these are the ones that I use. You can, again, just use the same ones if you want. You can make up your own. And I want to put as many as I can in here, which you could do 4. No, that. I don't need to do anything for add URL options. It's another thing I need to work on right now. I'm going to hit next. Site link extensions. I do use site link extensions. I find they are helpful. They can increase my conversions. And so what a site link extension is it's actually like, so for instance, let me pull up a couple of these and see if I can get a preview of one. So there you go. So like, it runs your ad up top and then you can have kind of like sub ads right below it. And so what I usually use these for is like, let me clear these out. It takes more time to set up, but I find that they're worth it. And so what you'll do is you'll say new site link extension, and I make 4 of them. And so like, what do people typically want in that subsegment, right? So like if I know like New Braunfels, I might do something like, homes with a pool, right? In New Braunfels, homes under 400,000. I might say homes on 1 acre plus. And then here I'll say homes with a 3-car garage, right? These are different things that people might be interested in those. But now what you have to do is if you're on KV Core, you have to go back to your squeeze page builder. By the way, if you don't have a squeeze page builder like on KV Core, the other thing you can just do is just go to your website, right? So like go go to your website and do the search on here, just like you would build it within there. So like if I was doing that same one, I would say New Braunfels, Texas. There we go. I just want single family. There we go. So like this is what, and then I would say search, and then I can grab this as what I want, right? So like to put in as my final URL if I don't have a squeeze page builder. Now, the only difference is like if your website is set up to trigger a lead generation form on like the second or third or whatever trigger, then it's just going to go at what that is. You can't like on the squeeze page builder, I can tell it I only want them, to immediately have to register. So that differs from what is normal on my website. So that's the advantage there. But anyways, so now here you go. You've got this. You could just, basically copy that URL and you could throw that in as your final URL up here. But now what you're going to need to do when we get over to the site link extensions is you got to go a little bit more in depth, right? So now if I want pool homes, I come over here and I've still got New Braunfels, Texas, single family listed. But now I can come over to my options. I can search for pool and then regenerate the link. Okay, so now it gives me a new link. It doesn't look like that changed, but it did because there's stuff at the end that changes. And so now and you can verify it by if you want to just paste that in here, you can see there we go. Now I'm down to 50 results. And I always do try and test just to make sure you do have results because you don't want to pick something that doesn't have any results that you're sending people to. So here I got 50 pool homes. And then I'd come back over to my site link extension. I'd put that as my final URL right there. Same thing, homes under 400,000. I'd remove the pool homes. And here I would just put, $400,000 max, generate link, copy that, test it, make sure it looks right. 61 results, that's fine. Paste that as the final URL there. Homes on an acre, remove that. Acres 1 plus, generate the link, copy, test. 63, good. Homes with a 3-car garage. Remove this. And then let's see, garage plus garage. Generate the link. Test. 66. Okay. There we go. And then so now for the descriptions, let's see here. I've got certain descriptions. Let's see which I'm using here. I'm going to cancel that. Extensions. Site link extensions. Edit. Here's what I'm using. Spring Branch homes for sale. And then under updated listings 24/7. So I'm going to paste that. Copy this. Paste that. Switch that out to New Braunfels. Homes. The pool. With a pool. Just like that. And I keep that updated 24/7. I put that one on all of them. Just copy this, paste that, homes, 100,000, like that. And then paste it there with a 3-car garage. Sometimes if it's too long like this, you can just go 3-car garage homes in New. We'll see if that fits. There you go. It fits perfect. Sometimes if that doesn't fix, you got to kind of, play with it a little bit. But now I'm just going to say next. And it's going to ask me what my budget is. Let's go ahead and say it's $10. It's telling me I should spend that much. So here it's telling me my cost per click is $1.13. So that's actually pretty good. I should expect 46 clicks per week with this particular budget. Say if I wanted to do 20. I guess that's not changing it. So let's see. Oh, that's saying how many. Okay, based on keywords and your daily budget. Yeah, I don't know why that's not updating. Usually that'll change. Let's see if I put 5 in there. Usually this updates and changes. I don't know why it's not. But anyways, I'll put 20. It's going to check for errors. Give me one more chance to make any changes here. So I've got one ad. I just want to make sure it did. Okay, yeah, good. It did give me the site links on there. Just wanted to make sure the site links did save to it, which it did. I don't do any call out extensions. I don't do call extensions. That's like if you want to, I used to in the past. I don't anymore. That's if you want to like put your phone number on there to have people call you, but most people aren't going to ever use that option. So this is just how I do it. So there you go. You got $20 budget. Oh, there we go. Now it updated. Tells me I should spend. So my average cost per click went up, right? Because now they're like, oh, you're spending more money. See, that's why they told me to spend more. So sometimes more isn't always better. Like, yes, you might get more leads on the whole, scheme of things. But of course, Google's a business. They're trying to make the most money possible. So that may not be as efficient for you to do it that way. And you might think like, well, but then maybe I don't get enough leads if, let's say that the particular area you're targeting doesn't get that much search traffic. Well, instead of trying to capitalize and get 100% of the whole area, which will end up costing you more budget, you might just go after a second area or a third area or a fourth area, and you just duplicate the process that I just showed you for New Braunfels. You do that whole same thing for another area. And that's usually better to split your budget up that way. Now, if you got a big area, like if I was going after all of San Antonio, chances are, I could spend whatever I want. And I'm not gonna, unless I've really, spending $1,000 a day or $500 a day or something like that, I'm probably not going to get to that point where it's like diminishing returns. So that's, that would be my, tip on that. So I'm going to say $10 a day, review the campaign. Everything looks good. Search, objective is leads, signups. Here I did maximize clicks. Remember, that's the bidding that you can do. You can either do it for conversions or clicks, depending on how you set your website up. I took off all the ad networks, all countries, English, no segments for my audience. I want it served to everybody because I'm going after my keywords. I've got my keywords, my ad, and my budget, and then I'm going to say publish, right? I'm not going to do that because now the last thing that I want to show you guys, I'm going to say save for later, is the negative keywords. So now let's say that you've got your ad up and running, you're starting to get some leads from it. Then at this point, what you're going to do is if you click on that campaign and you go to keywords, you can click on search keywords, and then you can see exactly what people have been searching for. Or I'm sorry, here we go, search terms. And you can see exactly what people have been searching for that actually have your ad served to them. So like, people that have searched for homes for sale in Spring Branch, Texas, Spring Branch homes for sale, Spring Branch. See, and this is where it's telling you, it's a close variant of what I've gone after. The actual term that I went for sale by owner, this was a broad match, right? So like, this is where they kind of, kind of thought that they knew what they wanted, Google what I wanted. And in actuality, I don't want for sale by owner, right? Like I don't want to probably have people that are searching for that hit my page because my page is not serving up for sale by owner homes. It's serving up MLS properties. So those people are probably not going to convert very well. So what you can do here is just click on that and I can add that as a negative keyword, right? So I'm going to add that as a negative keyword to the you can add it as to the whole campaign level or to the ad group level. And again, remember, campaign is at the very top, and usually you'll have ad groups, multiple ad groups underneath that one campaign, and then you have multiple ads within a specific ad group. In this case, we're running one ad per ad group, but the ad group is where you would have different cities or sub markets. So like I've got New Braunfels, but let's say I wanted to run another one for Spring Branch. They'd be in the same campaign. So it'd be the search campaign, but then I would have, Spring Branch as an ad group and New Braunfels as an ad group. And so what I can do is I can either add this as a negative keyword to the entire campaign or to just this ad group. If I do it to the entire campaign, it probably doesn't matter anyways, just because, this is going to add the, homes for sale by owner Spring Branch, Texas. So, if that goes to the campaign level, it's not going to apply to the New Braunfels one anyways. But like, let's say that I just wanted to type in a negative keyword of for sale by owner and just add that to the campaign level. Well, now if somebody searched in, for sale by owner, New Braunfels, Texas, for sale by owner, Spring Branch, Texas, it's not going to come up because I added for sale by owner as a negative keyword to the entire campaign. Whereas if I just added for sale by owner to the ad group level, which this ad group that I'm targeting is Spring Branch, then if somebody did that search for New Braunfels, it would still show up, right? So there's where you might want to do it at the campaign level. But if I'm doing this one that says for sale by owner Spring Branch, Texas, then it doesn't really matter, right? So, but if I took this out and I said, I want this out of the entire campaign, save, there we go. So now I've added that as a negative keyword. And so what you're going to do as your ads start to run and they start to, be sent to people, people start to see them, you want to start just monitoring that and like seeing like, okay, like homes for sale, Canyon Lake, Texas, I'm good with that. Canyon Lake is right next to Spring Branch. So, as long as it's converting okay, which this one I'm getting clicks, 25% click-through rate, that's fine. That's very small data. So, I mean, like over time, that's where you'd want to see like maybe after I had 30 days worth of data. If I've got 30 days worth of data and I've got ones that are like getting tons of impressions, but they're not getting any clicks, then I may want to add that as a negative keyword because maybe that ad isn't tailored good enough for that search term. It's, so you can remove that. But for the most part right now, I'm just kind of like monitoring, making sure that all of these have the intention that I'm looking for. And you can scroll to the next page, right? And there's more here. Cheap homes in Spring Branch, Texas. Maybe you don't want that. Like maybe you don't want to work with cheap homes in an area, right? Or if it's like, seller financing homes or, homes that, seller will finance, that type of stuff. Like those are the things that you want to look at. Also this, because like, this is a good example, homes for sale in Spring Branch, Houston. There is a Spring Branch in Houston, which is way different than the Spring Branch that I'm in San Antonio. So I would want to make sure that that is not showing up, right? And that one I can just add it to the ad group level. Because there's a Spring Branch just outside of Houston. So that is not good. I don't want that. Keep going through. And so you can see here. So, and then, so you would do this maybe after like 5 to 7 days of your ad running, and then do it again after another week or another 2 weeks. It's not like you have to do this every single day, but you do want to be aware of it, where it's running. And so same thing here, add that one as a negative keyword. So now it's just going to have a little negative keywords list. So you can see here, like these are all the different negative keywords that I've got in mine. Ranches, rancher, Remax, rent. Sometimes you won't want, like if somebody searches for Zillow, not all the time. I can still get sometimes people that search for like, certain brokerages, but if you're not at that brokerage, it's going to impact your conversion. So they're not going to, if they're looking for Century 21 and you're not with Century 21, ultimately you might, there's probably a reason why they're searching for that in particular. So I don't try to go against the grain. I try and make it easy for people, right? So I take out the ones that are not specifically intentional for what I'm doing. So that's pretty much it, guys. I cannot believe that I got all the way through that here in an hour. So I'm going to jump over real quick to the comments just to kind of take a look at what questions that we've got here and answer some of these questions that I see on here. So the first one that I see, Sherwin says, hi there, is there seller leads or buyer leads better from Google pay-per-click? Buyer leads for sure. There at this point, I mean, I've not found a really good way for seller leads on Google pay-per-click. And so it used to be able to do like home valuation, squeeze pages and landing pages, but those just don't work very good anymore. And so at this point, what I usually just say is, yes, you're going to primarily get buyer leads from this campaign. However, what I've found is about 30 to 35%, so almost a third of the buyer leads that you actually will service, that once you start getting clients from them, will have a house to sell as well. So, I mean, you will get some seller leads just because, these buyers are going to have homes to sell. So that's, an opportunity there, but they are not specifically seller leads. And I personally don't know of a good way, and I monitor a lot of different stuff where somebody's like just crushing it with Google pay-per-click and getting seller leads from it. I mean, honestly, at this point, seller leads, the best way to get those, calling for sale by owners, calling expireds, circle prospecting, open houses, door knocking, kind of more of the prospecting based setup. If you're doing kind of the ads, the lead generation type of stuff, the marketing, most of that's going to bring in your buyers. So, all right. Nate says, I was putting $1,000 into Google ads and got nothing. I talked to some other agents and they said it's because there are other people putting in $25,000 a month. Any truth to this? Not necessarily, Nate. I mean, the amount of budget that people put in, shouldn't matter because it's basically like a bidding system, right? So, um, their ads might be able to be served, you know, longer and they might be getting the top spot, but you can actually go in and see like where your placement is. Actually, here I have to go look, and it's been a little while since I did that, but you can see like, is my ad showing up as number one, as number two, as number three? Because usually there's three different ad spots that Google will show at the top, above the fold. There's more ad spots that they sell below. But, ultimately, I guess the question I'd have to put back to you, Nate, was, are you saying that you were spending $1,000 in Google ads and you weren't even getting leads, or were you getting leads, but those leads were not converting? Because if you spent $1,000 in the ads and didn't get any leads, then I would say there was probably something wrong with the way that you had it set up. Or like sometimes if you put like a maximum cost, like that you're willing to pay per lead or per click, that can affect it too. Because if you say, hey, I'm only willing to pay $2 per click, and if you got somebody that's putting in $25,000 a month, which that's really high, but I know some people do it, that do spend, a significant budget on it. And if they're willing to spend $5 per click, well, then they're always going to show their ad above your ad. And so you may not ever get a lot of clicks because most of the time people are going to click on the first suggestion or maybe the second one, but if you're like way down the line, it's a really competitive Google pay-per-click market, then, then I could see that happening. But most of the time, if they're spending a lot of money, it just means that they're allowing their ads to be served, throughout the day, all the time. Because what ends up happening, especially with mine, where let's say I have a low budget on something, is it'll just serve my ads, it'll get me leads, but then once it's spent my budget, which it might be after like 3 hours or 4 hours of the day, it doesn't show my ad anymore, right? Like, so I mean, so it's still going to get you leads, but it may not get you them all the day because you don't have as long of a budget or you don't have as big of a budget. So I hope that helps there, Nate. What's my funnel like? Well, I just showed you. So, I mean, basically, you get them to your landing page and then convert them. And then, once you have that lead, then I mean, that's my funnel essentially, on the pay-per-click side, the funnel isn't super extensive. My content marketing funnel is definitely a lot longer. There's more things, more steps to do. But with what we're talking about here with Google pay-per-click, you're mostly just trying to generate the lead. And then it starts being like the prospecting cycle where you've got a prospect. Yeah, I mean, you can set up your drip campaigns and things like that, but I don't really count that as part of like my funnel. That's just my follow-up efforts at that point, because now I've got the lead. So, I mean, they're pretty much at the end of my funnel at that point. I still want to get them to a client, but I'm going to be prospecting them to pretty much get them to my client, to a client status. All right. Jennifer says, I've set up something, did not know what I was doing, got leads that converted to sales. Well, there we go. There you go. Sometimes just experimenting and being willing to, I mean, that's the thing is you gotta, if you're going to do this strategy, set aside money that's like R&D, right? Research and development. And, some of it is going to get wasted. Like you're going to not be optimized. It's not going to be efficient, but I can promise you, if you keep going down this path and you're running it and you're spending the money, you're going to figure it out, right? Because nobody wants to spend money forever with no success. So, I mean, but you do have to put some budget to saying like, hey, I'm going to learn this by doing it. And keep doing it, keep getting better at it. And ultimately that will help you out there. So, all right, let's see here. I think we got another one. She says, this is just what I needed for my new team. Love it. Yeah. If you're running a team, Jennifer, I mean, this is honestly one of the best ways to get leads to your teammates, because I mean, even if you're the rainmaker and you are, have a big sphere of influence and all that type of stuff, if you start bringing on 2, 3, 4, 5 team agents and you do it quickly, it can be hard to scale your lead generation fast enough to be able to feed all of those agents. Whereas Google, I mean, it's just a math equation, right? Like it's a math equation and then a follow-up process. I mean, you can't, if you just get a bunch of agents and you're not clear on the expectations of what the follow-up process is, and they're just kind of like not doing anything with them, then of course you can start to lose a lot of money. But at the end of the day, if you are, good on your follow-up process, you're going to get leads with this. You might have to get more efficient, with the lead generation, like on the Google pay-per-click side, and getting better at running the ads. And if something's not working, because I've set up ads that I've done them just like this, and something doesn't work, right? Like it's not working right. I got to go in and look, like, what did I do different? Why is it not working? So, this is like the ideal situation that I just showed over the last hour. But, so there's going to be some finessing that you may have to do. And you might have to learn. You might have to go watch other videos. But once you get it dialed in to where it's like, hey, I've got leads like going, I know what my cost per lead is. It's so much easier. Like, hey, you got a new agent that comes on board. Boom, I'm going to step up, my lead budget to this much. I'm going to start, dishing out more leads to this person. I'm still going to monitor what they're doing with the leads. But at the end of the day, it's a very easier way to scale a team than any other any other method. So Nate says no conversion. So does that mean you had no conversion? Sorry, Nate. I guess maybe I should have been more specific. No conversion to like on the lead generation side, or no conversion on once they were generated to a client, like or to a closing. Where were you not getting the conversion at, Nate? That would be my question there. So because it's hard to say, because those are two completely different things that you would have to work on, right? If you're not getting any conversion on the Google pay-per-click to where you're not getting any leads, they're not converting into leads into your database. That's a different problem. You have to solve that by figuring out where in the Google pay-per-click, algorithm, where in the setup is wrong. If you were getting no conversion, meaning that like you were generating leads, but you weren't converting them into clients, that's a whole different problem. That's like, you got to fix the follow-up process. Could be scripting. It could be like how quick you're getting to the leads. It could be the longevity, like how often you're calling them. Like if you're only calling the lead 1 or 2 times and giving up, that's obviously a big problem there too. So, but yeah, so those are all different things that you'd have to solve for. So, and to be honest, if it was the Google pay-per-click side, like if you were like saying, hey, I wasn't even getting leads and I was spending $1,000 a month, that's a really hard problem for me to diagnose without like looking and seeing specifically what was on your setup. So, all right, guys. Well, hey, I hope that helps out. I really enjoyed talking pay-per-click with you guys today. I know that one of the other things too that we'll get into more details about down the road is there's another strategy you can do that you can implement called retargeting with Facebook. And that's why I have a Facebook pixel installed. And so like I mentioned, let's say that, you have 50 clicks to your website, but you only generate 5 leads. Well, 45 other people hit your ad, so they have some intent, they have some interest, but they didn't want to register. Well, when you install a Facebook pixel on your website, which is very easy to do as well, you can now actually retarget that same audience on Facebook. So the next time they log in, they'll see another ad from you, and it's a very cost-effective ad. You can, because you're not sending it out to random, cold audience, which is what most people on Facebook do. You're actually sending it to people that already saw your stuff. They just didn't register, and now you get a second shot at them. So that's another way that you can enhance and try and get a little bit more return on investment. It's a whole nother thing though to kind of show the setup of that. But just realize that when you kind of match up pay-per-click with retargeting, those are kind of two of the best ways that I've found for internet lead generation to get the most ROI on your money. So we'll have to definitely talk about that on the retargeting side if you guys are interested. But make sure, again, if you haven't already, hit that like button, give this video a like, and definitely subscribe to the channel if you're not already. If you got any other further comments or questions, put them in the comments down below at the end of this video, and I'll definitely be responding to your comments and questions as I see them. So thanks so much, everybody. I hope you have an amazing rest of the week, and we'll talk to you soon. Bye, everybody.